The cycle begins, as it always does, with the low, rhythmic thrum of the life support systems vibrating through the titanium floor plates. Down here, 500 meters below the surface of planet 4546b, the sun is a distant memory, replaced by the soft cyan glow of the bioluminescent flora dancing outside the reinforced glass. The station breathes with me, a steady, mechanical lung, recycling the recycled air, while the pressure of the Grand Reef presses in, a heavy, silent weight that never truly leaves the mind. I check the primary console, the holographic interface casting a pale blue light across my hands as I scroll through the overnight diagnostics. Everything is green or a soft, comforting amber, indicating the usual wear from the salt and the depth, but nothing that requires immediate alarm. The hull integrity is holding at 98%, a testament to the reinforced plating and the lithium-tempered glass, which keeps the crushing reality of the ocean at bay. I take a moment to simply watch the anchor pods. Swaying in the gentle subsurface currents, their long glowing stalks reaching down into the darkness, like the roots of some alien forest. There is a specific sound to the night shift, a symphony of small metallic groans and the distant haunting call of a reefback echoing through the water column. It is a lonely sound, but not an unkind one, a reminder that even in this pressurized tomb of technology, I am surrounded by life, however strange and indifferent it may be. I adjust the brightness of the room, dimming the internal lights to a soft, warm orange, allowing the natural bioluminescence of the reef to flood the observation deck. It is easier to see the cracks in the world when you are not blinded by your own reflection. My boots make a dull, muffled clank as I walk toward the moon pool, the heart of the base where the water and the air meet in a delicate surface tension dance. The Seamoth sits suspended in its docking clamps, its yellow hull scarred from previous excursions, a faithful companion in the vast, watery void. I run a gloved hand along its canopy, feeling the cold, smooth texture of the glass, before checking the power cells, which hum with a faint, electric vitality. The water below the moon pool is dark, a shimmering indigo pool that reflects the overhead lights, beckoning and forbidding all at once. I begin the exterior inspection, a task that requires a steady hand and a calm heart, as I step into the diving chamber and feel the pressure equalize with a sharp metallic hiss. The transition is always the most difficult part, the moment when the safety of the base is traded for the vastness of the open water, where the only thing between me and the deep is a few layers of reinforced fabric. As the hatch opens, the silence of the base is replaced by the roar of the ocean, a low-frequency rumble that vibrates in the chest, more felt than heard. I push off, my fins cutting through the water with a soft rhythmic swish as I glide toward the first of the external hull plates. The repair tool feels heavy in my hand, its internal battery warm against my palm as I trigger the welding beam to seal a hairline fracture in the titanium. The sparks are bright, tiny stars that flicker and die in the cold water, leaving behind a trail of bubbles that rise toward the surface like silver pearls. It is meticulous work, a slow progression from one weld to the next, ensuring that the integrity of our home remains absolute against the encroaching tide. I work in the shadow of the base, the massive structure looming above me like a sleeping leviathan, its lights casting long, distorted shadows across the seafloor. I drift toward the thermal plant, situated on the edge of a nearby volcanic vent, where the heat of the planet is harnessed to keep our lights burning and our air flowing. The water here is warmer, a shimmering haze of heat that distorts the view as the steam and minerals rise in a constant churning column. I clear away the encroaching creepvine, its glowing seeds sticking to my suit like bioluminescent burrs, as I ensure the intake valves are free of debris. The heat is a comfort, a reminder of the fire that burns at the core of this world, providing the energy we need to survive in the freezing dark. Beyond the thermal plant, the reef drops away into a sheer abyss, a wall of darkness that seems to swallow the light of my torch. I do not look down, for the depths have a way of pulling at the soul, whispering of things that dwell in the crushing blackness where no light ever reaches. Instead, I focus on the small things, the tiny bladderfish that dart between the rocks, and the delicate, translucent fans of the coral swaying in the wake of my movement. There is a peace here, a quietude that can only be found when you are truly alone, separated from the rest of humanity by miles of water and light years of space. I make my way to the exterior grow beds, where the samples of local flora are kept for study and sustenance, their leaves glowing with a soft internal fire. I check the nutrient levels, adding a few drops of concentrated fertilizer to the water, watching as the liquid disperses in a swirling emerald cloud. These plants are our link to the world, a way of understanding the biology of 4546b, and a source of oxygen that feels more natural than the scrubbed air of the life support system. I touch the leaf of a marble melon, its surface cool and waxy, a small piece of life thriving in the heart of the deep. High above, the silhouette of a reefback passes over the base, its massive body blotting out the faint, bioluminescent glow from the upper reef. I watch it move, a slow, majestic titan of the sea, its barnacle-encrusted shell home to an entire ecosystem of its own. It is a humbling sight, a reminder that we are but guests in this world, carving out a small, fragile existence in the shadow of giants. The low, booming groan of the creature vibrates through the water, a sound that feels like the earth itself is speaking, a deep, resonant chord that lingers in the air long after the beast has passed. I turn my attention back to the base, checking the external floodlights that illuminate the perimeter, ensuring they are clear of the salt deposits that build up in the high-pressure environment. The light is a beacon, a sharp white spear that cuts through the blue, providing a sense of boundary and safety in the trackless wild. I wipe the salt from the lens of a camera drone, its mechanical eye tracking my movement with a soft, whirring sound, a silent sentinel that watches the dark when I cannot. It is a comfort to know that even when I am sleeping, the machines are awake, keeping their tireless vigil over our small island of light. As I swim back toward the moon pool, I catch a glimpse of something moving in the distance, a flicker of light that does not belong to the reef. It is gone in an instant, a ghost in the water, leaving me to wonder if it was merely a trick of the light, or one of the many mysteries that still haunt these depths. I do not chase it, for the night shift is a time for routine and caution, not for chasing shadows in the dark. I reach the moon pool and hoist myself out of the water, the weight of gravity returning with a sudden jarring force as I stand on the solid deck once more. I shed the diving suit, the fabric cold and heavy, and step back into the dry, climate-controlled interior of the base, the air smelling of ozone and recycled oxygen. The transition back to the world of air is always a relief, a shedding of the heavy mantle of the ocean, though a part of me always feels a little less whole without the water. I walk through the habitat, the soft lighting reflecting off the white, sterile walls, as I make my way toward the scanning room to log my findings. The base feels smaller now, a cramped metallic shell, but it is a shell that keeps me alive, and for that I am grateful. I sit at the scanning console, the holographic map of the surrounding terrain shimmering in the air before me, a complex web of blue lines and golden waypoints. I input the data from my inspection, noting the repairs made to the hull and the status of the thermal plant, my fingers moving across the interface with practiced ease. The map shows the vastness of the crater, the jagged edges of the mountains and the deep winding tunnels that lead to the heart of the planet. It is a map of a world that is still mostly unknown, a frontier that we have only begun to scratch the surface of. I take a moment to look at the long-range scans, the faint signals of other abandoned structures scattered across the seafloor, remnants of those who came before us. They are silent now, their lights extinguished and their halls flooded, a grim reminder of what happens when the ocean wins. We are the latest in a long line of explorers, trying to make a home in a place that was never meant for us, clinging to our titanium walls and our artificial lights. It is a sobering thought, but one that drives us to be better, to be more careful, and to respect the power of the world outside. I move to the bioreactor room, the large cylindrical tank humming with a low organic vibration as it breaks down the plant matter into usable energy. The green glow of the reactor is hypnotic, a swirling vortex of bioluminescent slurry that powers the most basic functions of our home. I add a few more samples of creepvine to the hopper, watching as they are pulled into the machine, their energy becoming our energy in a never-ending cycle of consumption and growth. It is a messy, necessary part of life down here, a bridge between the biological and the mechanical that keeps the heart of the base beating. I stop by the water filtration machine, the rhythmic clunking of its internal pistons a constant backdrop to the life of the station. I collect the freshly purified water, the bottle cool and condensation slicked in my hand, and take a long, slow drink, the taste of the minerals sharp and clean. Water is the most precious resource we have, a paradox in a world made of nothing else. Yet we must work so hard to make it safe for us to consume. I watch the machine work, a tireless servant that turns the salt of the sea into the lifeblood of the crew, its steady pulse a comfort in the quiet hours. I climb the ladder to the observation deck, the metal rungs cold under my feet, and sit in the large cushioned chair that overlooks the reef. This is my favorite part of the shift, the time when the work is done and I can simply be a silent observer of the world outside. The Grand Reef is a sea of stars, the glowing pods and the shimmering fish creating a constellation of light that rivals the sky above. I lean my head back against the rest, closing my eyes for a moment, and let the sounds of the base wash over me, the hums and the groans, and the soft, distant calls of the deep. I think about the surface, the wind and the rain and the sun that we haven't seen in months, and I wonder if the world up there still looks the same. But then I look back out at the reef, at the beauty and the terror of this alien ocean, and I realize that this is our world now, for better or for worse. We are the keepers of the light, the guardians of this small metallic bubble. And as long as the life support hums and the hull integrity holds, we will continue to thrive. The shift is almost over, the first hints of the morning light beginning to filter down through the water, turning the deep blue into a soft, pale cyan. I stand up, stretching my tired limbs, and prepare to hand over the watch to the day crew, who will bring their noise and their energy to these quiet halls. I will go to my bunk, pull the curtains tight against the light, and sleep the deep, dreamless sleep of the tired, while the ocean continues its eternal dance outside my window. The base is safe, the repairs are done, and for another day we have held the darkness at bay. I walk toward the sleeping quarters, my footsteps echoing in the empty corridor, as the station prepares to wake up and begin the cycle all over again. The transition from the living quarters to the lower docking bay is a journey through silence, a descent into the belly of the station where the air feels thicker, and the hum of the deep-sea pumps is a physical weight against the chest. My boots ring out with a hollow metallic chime on the grated floor, a sound that seems to travel for miles in the pressurized stillness of the night watch. I reach the moon pool where the dark water of the Grand Reef laps gently against the interior hull, a shimmering ink-black mirror that reflects the flickering status lights of the docking bay. The prawn suit hangs in its cradle, a massive, silent sentinel of titanium and glass, waiting for the commands that will bring its hydraulic limbs to life. I climb into the cockpit, the smell of recycled air and warm electronics greeting me like an old familiar friend, a scent that speaks of long hours and solitary labor. The hatch seals with a pressurized hiss, a sound that cuts off the ambient noise of the base and replaces it with the low internal thrum of the suit's life support systems. I run my hands over the controls, the tactile click of the switches providing a grounding rhythm as I initiate the startup sequence, one system at a time. The heads-up display flickers into existence, casting a soft amber glow over the interior, highlighting the dust motes dancing in the recycled air. I feel the suit shift as the magnetic clamps release, the sudden weight of the machine settling onto its mechanical joints with a groan of protest. Lowering into the water is a slow, deliberate process, the surface tension breaking with a soft gurgle as the cockpit submerged into the deep, bioluminescent blue of the reef. Outside, the world is transformed into a landscape of shadows and neon, where the massive glowing anchor pods sway in the slow subterranean currents like lanterns in a submerged forest. I guide the suit downward, the thrusters firing with a muffled roar that vibrates through the seat, pushing me deeper into the cold, crushing embrace of the ocean. The depth gauge scrolls steadily, counting out the meters as I descend toward the thermal plants, those lonely outposts of heat and energy that keep our world alive in the freezing dark. I pass the skeletal remains of a massive ancient creature, its bones bleached white and half buried in the silt, a reminder of the scale of time that exists in this place. The light from my external floodlights catches the shimmering scales of a passing school of hoopfish, their bodies trailing ribbons of light that dance in the wake of my movement. It is easy to feel small here, a tiny spark of human intent moving through a world that is indifferent to our presence, a world that has existed for eons without the touch of a machine. But there is work to be done, maintenance that cannot wait for the sun. And so I push forward into the gloom, my focus narrowed to the task at hand. As I approach the first thermal generator, the water begins to shimmer with heat, the distortion making the metal structure appear to ripple and flow like a mirage in the desert. I extend the suit's heavy claw, the servos whining softly as I reach for the primary coupling, a piece of machinery that has been vibrating out of alignment for the last 3 shifts. The metal is hot to the touch, even through the thick, reinforced plating of the suit. And I can feel the raw power of the planet's core pulsing through the frame. I work with a slow, practiced hand, the adjustments precise and measured, until the vibration ceases and the generator returns to its steady, low-frequency hum. It is a small victory, a single point of order restored to the chaos of the deep, but it is enough to sustain the rhythm of the shift. I move along the cliffside, the suit's jump jets providing a momentary lift as I navigate the jagged outcroppings of quartz and lithium that stud the rock face. Above me, the silhouette of a crab squid drifts through the water, its many eyes glowing with a pale, haunting light that seems to pierce through the darkness. I dim my lights, not wanting to provoke the creature's curiosity, and wait in the shadows until it has passed, its translucent mantle pulsing with a rhythmic, alien grace. The silence that follows is profound, a heavy velvet quiet that seems to press in from all sides, broken only by the soft, steady rasp of my own breathing. I check the power levels, the glowing cells showing 78%. Plenty of energy left for the long crawl back to the primary hub. Further down, near the entrance to the winding caverns of the Lost River, the water takes on a sickly green hue, the result of ancient brine pools that settle in the low points of the seafloor. I stop for a moment to observe the flow, the way the toxic mist curls around the base of the rocks like a ghostly river within the ocean, a boundary between the world of light and the world of the deep. There is a beauty in the danger of this place, a stark, uncompromising reality that demands respect and constant vigilance from those who dare to walk its paths. I record the atmospheric readings, the data scrolling across my screen in a steady stream of white text, a digital testament to the shifting chemistry of the deep. The sensors pick up a faint, distant call, a low-toned moan that could be a leviathan or simply the shifting of the tectonic plates, a sound that resonates in the very marrow of my bones. I turn the suit toward the secondary outpost, a small modular structure perched on the edge of a precipice, its windows glowing with a warm, inviting light. This station is a waypoint for the long-range scouts, a place of rest and resupply that requires a nightly check of its external oxygen scrubbers and hull integrity. I land the suit on the reinforced platform, the heavy feet clanging against the metal with a satisfying solid thud that echoes through the water. I step out of the suit, the sudden transition to the pressurized interior of the outpost making my ears pop, the air here smelling of ozone and the faint earthy scent of the small garden of marble melons in the corner. I walk to the window and look out, the vastness of the ocean stretching away into infinity, a dark, starless void that holds a million secrets. I spend a few minutes checking the logs, the digital screen glowing in the dim light of the small room. The entries a mundane record of oxygen levels and battery cycles. It is quiet work, the kind of task that allows the mind to wander, to think of the surface and the people we left behind on the other side of the stars. But those thoughts are a luxury we cannot often afford, for the ocean is a jealous mistress that demands our full attention if we are to survive her embrace. I finish the rounds, the seals on the airlock cycling with a familiar rhythmic sequence of clicks and hums, and return to the safety of the prawn suit. The seat is still warm from my previous session, a small comfort in the cold metal shell that protects me from the crushing weight of the world outside. As I begin the ascent back toward the main base, the lights of the habitat appear in the distance, a cluster of glowing jewels set against the dark velvet of the reef. The journey back is always faster, the current helping to push the heavy suit through the water as the thrusters hum with a steady, reassuring tone. I think about the day crew, who will soon be waking up to the reports I have written, their world defined by the data and the repairs I have completed in the dark. We are the silent partners in this endeavor, the ones who ensure that the light never goes out, that the air stays sweet, and that the walls hold back the infinite pressure of the deep. The moon pool is waiting, its surface a shimmering invitation to return to the world of the living, to the warmth and the noise of the station. I guide the suit into the docking cradle, the magnetic locks snapping into place with a series of heavy metallic thuds that signal the end of the exterior work. I remain in the cockpit for a moment, the systems powering down in a sequence of fading lights and cooling fans, the silence returning to the small space. My hands are steady as I unbuckle the harness, the physical exertion of the shift beginning to settle into my muscles as a dull, satisfying ache. Outside the suit, the moon pool area is bathed in the soft blue glow of the standby lights, the water below still and silent once again. I make my way toward the central corridor, my footsteps slower now, the weight of the night beginning to pull at my eyelids as the first hints of the morning shift begin to stir in the distant reaches of the base. The corridor is a long silver throat, swallowing the sound of my boots as I walk away from the moon pool, leaving the heavy echoes of the prawn suit behind me. The air is cooler here, away from the heavy machinery, carrying the faint metallic tang of recycled oxygen and the sharp, clean scent of the ocean spray that lingers on my suit. I pass the first bulkhead, the heavy doors sliding open with a sigh of hydraulics that echoes in the emptiness of the night shift. It is a sound I have grown to love, a sign of the base's integrity, a rhythmic breath that tells me the seals are holding and the pressure is being kept at bay. To my left, the water filtration unit is working its steady rhythmic pulse, a deep mechanical heartbeat that vibrates through the floorboards and into the soles of my feet. I stop for a moment, watching the condensation bead on the exterior of the pipes, tiny droplets of life pulled from the brine of the ocean through a complex dance of membranes and pressure. The machine hums a low, vibrating note, a constant reminder of our dependence on these systems, a song of survival played in the key of humming copper and rushing fluid. I reach out and clear the salt from the collection tray, the white crystals crunching like dry snow between my fingers, a tactile reminder of the harsh world just beyond the hull. It is a simple task, a repetitive motion that grounds me in the reality of our survival, the salt feeling heavy and enriched by the strange minerals of this alien world. I set the containers aside for the kitchen staff to process in the morning, knowing they will turn this grit into something useful for the crew's meals. I wipe the tray clean with a slow, methodical stroke, the microfiber cloth catching on the rough edges of the metal, leaving the surface gleaming under the dim, red emergency lights. The silence of the base is not a true silence, but a layer of mechanical whispers that tell the story of a habitat that never truly sleeps. I move further into the base, the glass of the connecting tunnel revealing the dark expanse of the Grand Reef, where the bioluminescent plants sway in the invisible currents. Their soft blue light casts long dancing shadows across the interior walls, a silent ballet performed for an audience of one in the middle of the night. The pressure outside is immense, hundreds of meters of water pressing against the reinforced glass with a weight I try not to calculate, a force that would crush a man in a heartbeat if the glass ever failed. I can hear the hull groan occasionally, a deep, resonant sound like a whale calling from the abyss, the base breathing with the ocean. I reach the scanner room, the door sliding open to reveal a space bathed in the warm amber glow of the holographic map that floats in the center of the room. It is a three-dimensional ghost of the surrounding seabed, a digital landscape of jagged peaks and deep trenches rendered in flickering orange light. I watch the terrain rotate slowly, the sensors picking up a cluster of lithium deposits near the northern ridge, their signatures blinking softly on the display like distant stars. I make a note in the digital log, the keys of the console clicking with a soft, tactile precision that feels loud in the stillness of the room. It is a peaceful place, a room of quiet observation where I can see the world without being part of its dangers, a sanctuary of data in a sea of chaos. I check the camera feeds next, switching between the remote drones that sit like gargoyles on the exterior of the base, their lenses caked with a thin layer of silt. The world they see is monochrome and grainy, a landscape of shadows and sudden darting movements that hint at the life teeming just out of sight. A school of holefish passes by one lens, their glowing centers looking like misplaced embers floating in the dark, a brief flash of beauty in the void. The drones are holding steady, their batteries still showing 85% charge, despite the long night of scanning and patrolling. I cycle through the remaining cameras, ensuring the structural supports are clear of any debris or curious wildlife that might have wandered too close. Everything is as it should be, a testament to the engineering that keeps us dry and the maintenance that keeps the engineering from failing. Leaving the scanner room, I head toward the bioreactor chamber, the green glow of the organic fuel source visible through the doorway like a beacon. The air here is thicker, smelling of damp earth and the sweet, fermenting scent of plant matter, a natural smell that stands in stark contrast to the sterile environment of the corridors. The reactor hums with a vibrant, energetic buzz, the sound of life being converted into power, a cycle of renewal that mimics the world outside. I open the hatch, the warmth of the core brushing against my face, and begin the process of replenishing the fuel with the trimmings from the interior grouts. I use the thick stalks of Chinese potato and the broad, waxy leaves of the bulbo tree, feeding the machine the green gold of our harvest. Each piece of matter I drop into the reactor is consumed by the glowing liquid, breaking down into the raw energy that keeps our oxygen flowing and our lights burning. It feels like a small, private ritual, a way of giving back to the machine that sustains us, a moment of connection between the organic and the mechanical. The green light intensifies for a moment, a pulse of power rippling through the grid, and I watch the levels stabilize on the digital readout. The reactor is a hungry thing, but it is efficient, turning the waste of our garden into the very breath in our lungs. I close the hatch and secure the latches, the metal cool to the touch once more, and take a deep breath of the earthy air before moving on. My route takes me past the alien containment unit, a massive two-story cylinder of glass that dominates the central hub of the living quarters. Inside, the water is clear and still, home to a small collection of the planet's inhabitants that we have brought inside for study and companionship. I see a peeper darting through the stalks of a creepvine, its large, curious eye catching the light as it watches me pass with an intelligence that is both alien and familiar. The creepvine glows with a soft bioluminescent yellow, its long fronds reaching toward the ceiling like fingers of light searching for a sun they will never see. I press my hand against the glass, the surface cold and smooth, and watch the tiny bubbles rise from the floor of the tank in a steady silver stream. It is a miniature ocean, a piece of the wild brought inside and tamed for our observation, a reminder of the beauty that exists in the depths. There is a peace in watching them swim, a slow, effortless grace that makes the struggles of the surface and the mission feel very far away. These creatures do not know of the crash, or the debt, or the long years we have spent trying to find a way home. They only know the water and the light. I stay for a minute longer than necessary, letting their calm seep into my own mind, a brief respite from the responsibilities of the shift. The observation room is my final stop on this level, a quiet bubble of glass that juts out over the edge of the plateau into the dark. I sit in the heavy padded chair, the only furniture in the room, and look out into the starless void of the deep ocean. The darkness here is absolute, broken only by the occasional flash of a distant predator or the faint, pulsing light of a jellysh room in the distance. I think of the vastness of 4546b, a world that is almost entirely water, and how small our presence here truly is in the grand scheme of things. We are like ants on the back of a leviathan, clinging to the surface while the depths remain untouched and indifferent to our existence. It is a humbling thought, one that makes the safety of the base and the warmth of the lights feel even more precious and fragile. I check my watch, the glowing hands marking the passage of the hours toward the dawn that will never reach this depth. My shift is not yet over, but the rhythm of the night has settled into a steady, comfortable pace that carries me through the tasks. I stand up, the floor beneath me solid and reassuring, and prepare to descend to the lower levels where the core systems reside. The thermal plant is calling, its deep, volcanic heat the ultimate source of our survival in this frozen, watery dark. I walk toward the ladder, the metal rungs cool in my grip, and begin the long climb down into the belly of the station to ensure the fire of the planet keeps our world alive. The descent is a slow, rhythmic movement, my boots finding the cold metal rungs, one by one, as I move deeper into the belly of the base. The air here feels heavier, carrying a faint metallic tang, and the persistent low-frequency thrum of the thermal generators begins to vibrate through the soles of my shoes. It is a sound that lives in your bones, a constant reminder of the incredible forces being harnessed just a few meters away, beneath the reinforced plating of the floor. As I reach the bottom of the ladder, the blue emergency lighting of the upper decks gives way to a warm, amber glow. This is the heart of the facility, where the heat of the planet is converted into the lifeblood of our systems. The walls here are thicker, reinforced with lead and titanium to withstand the immense pressure and the searing temperatures of the volcanic vent we have perched upon. I can hear the distant, muffled roar of the lava flows, a sound like 1,000 furnaces burning in the dark. I walk down the narrow corridor, my footsteps echoing softly against the diamond plate flooring. Every few meters, a steam pipe hisses, releasing a tiny plume of white vapor that vanishes into the ventilation grates. It is a sign of a healthy system, the breathing of a machine that never sleeps. I stop at the primary heat exchanger, its massive cylindrical form pulsing with a dull rhythmic light that matches the heartbeat of the base. I place my gloved hand on the outer casing, feeling the gentle tremor of the turbines spinning at thousands of rotations per minute. There is a strange comfort in this vibration, a sense of power and stability in a world that is otherwise so fluid and unpredictable. I check the analog gauges mounted on the side, their needles hovering steadily within the green zones, indicating that the thermal transfer is optimal. We are drawing 400 kilowatts of power from the Earth's core, enough to keep the lights on and the oxygen flowing for another 100 years if we need it to. I moved toward the observation port, a thick, multi-layered window made of reinforced enameled glass. Outside, the world is a chaotic dance of orange and black. We are situated on the edge of a massive drop-off, where the seabed falls away into a river of molten rock. The lava flows like liquid fire, illuminating the jagged basalt pillars and the strange crystalline structures that grow in the intense heat. It is a landscape that feels primordial, as if I am looking back at the very beginning of the world. I see a group of lava larvae, their translucent bodies glowing with a faint internal light as they cling to the exterior of the thermal plant. They are parasites, drawn to the heat and the energy we produce, slowly leaching away the power for their own survival. I will have to cycle the exterior hull plates later to shake them off, but for now, I simply watch them. They move with a slow, undulating motion, oblivious to the human observer watching them from behind the glass. Further out, in the hazy, red-tinted distance, a sea dragon leviathan drifts through the thermal currents. It is a creature of mythic proportions, its massive form silhouetted against the glow of the lava. It moves with a terrifying grace, its long, tentacled tail trailing behind it like a shadow. I hold my breath, even though I know the glass is thick enough to withstand a direct impact. Out here, we are the intruders, living in a world that was never meant for us, and the Leviathan is the true master of the deep. I turn away from the window and head toward the maintenance console, the interface glowing with a soft orange light. I need to run a diagnostic on the cooling fins, which are prone to calcification in these mineral-rich waters. The computer chirps softly as I enter my credentials, the sound a sharp contrast to the low rumble of the environment. I navigate through the menus, my fingers moving across the touch-sensitive surface with the practiced ease of someone who has done this 1,000 times. Everything seems to be in order. The secondary cooling loops are operating at 98% efficiency, and the internal temperature of the reactor core is stable at 1200 degrees Celsius. It is a delicate balance, maintaining a pocket of life in such an extreme environment. One small failure, one cracked seal or burst pipe, and the ocean would reclaim this space in an instant. But we do not think about that. We simply do the work, one task at a time, trusting in the engineering and the routine. I walk past the row of power cells, their green indicator lights blinking in a slow, synchronized pattern. They are fully charged, a silent reserve of energy that will keep us safe even if the thermal plant were to fail. I reach out and touch one of the cells, the surface slightly warm to the touch. It is a tangible piece of security, a battery full of sunlight and heat, stored away for the long, dark night of the ocean floor. The air in this section is noticeably warmer, and I feel a bead of sweat trickle down my neck. I adjust the internal cooling of my dive suit, the small fans whirring to life near my ears. It is a reminder that we are only here by the grace of our technology, sheltered in a fragile bubble of air and metal. I move toward the secondary turbine hall, where the sound of the machinery becomes a deafening, yet strangely melodic, roar. I inspect the grease points on the main drive shaft, looking for any signs of wear or leakage. The lubricants we use are specially formulated to withstand the high temperatures, but even they have their limits. I find a small smudge of dark oil on the floor and kneel down to examine it. It is fresh, likely a slow weep from a gasket that will need replacing during the next major maintenance cycle. I make a note of it on my handheld tablet, the screen bright in the dim room. As I stand up, I catch a glimpse of my reflection in the polished metal of the turbine housing. I look tired, my eyes shadowed by the long hours of the night shift, but there is a quiet satisfaction in the work. There is no one else down here, no voices to distract me, just the machine and the ocean. It is a solitary existence, but it is not a lonely one. I feel a deep connection to the base, as if it were a living thing that I am responsible for keeping healthy and strong. I move to the end of the hall, where a small, circular hatch leads to the external maintenance airlock. I do not need to go outside tonight, but I check the seals anyway, running my hand along the thick, rubberized gasket. It is intact, free of any debris or salt crystals that could compromise the vacuum. Beyond this door lies the crushing weight of the deep, a pressure so immense that it would flatten a human body in a heartbeat. I turn the locking wheel just a fraction to ensure it is tight, then move back toward the center of the room. I find a small bench near the monitoring station and sit down for a moment, letting the warmth of the room soak into my limbs. I look up at the ceiling, where a network of pipes and cables crisscross like the veins and arteries of the station. I think about the people sleeping in the quarters above, dreaming of the surface and the sun, unaware of the quiet labor happening beneath their feet. Their safety is my responsibility, a silent pact made between the night shift worker and the rest of the crew. In the corner of the room, a small automated drone sits on its charging cradle, its single red eye blinking as it processes the data it gathered during its last patrol. It is a simple machine designed for hull inspections and minor repairs, but I have come to think of it as a companion. I give it a gentle pat as I walk by, the metal casing cold and smooth. It does not respond, but its presence is a comfort. Another pair of eyes watching over the base in the dark. I check the clock on my HUD, noting that I have been on this level for nearly 2 hours. Time has a way of stretching and warping in the deep, the distinction between day and night blurring into a single continuous flow of tasks and observations. I stand up and stretch, my joints popping in the quiet room. It is time to head back toward the central hub to check in with the primary artificial intelligence and ensure that the rest of the base is functioning as smoothly as the thermal plant. As I walk back toward the ladder, I take one last look out the observation port. The sea dragon is gone, replaced by a school of smaller bioluminescent fish that dart through the thermal plumes like sparks from a fire. The lava continues its slow, relentless crawl across the seabed, a river of light in the eternal darkness. It is a beautiful, terrifying sight, a reminder of the raw power of the planet we have chosen to call home, at least for a while. I begin the climb back up, the air cooling as I ascend, the heavy thrum of the turbines fading into a distant background hum. The transition from the heat of the core to the cool of the upper levels is always a strange sensation, like stepping from one world into another. I feel lighter, the pressure of the deep feeling just a little bit further away with every rung I climb. My shift is moving into its final stages, the routine bringing me closer to the end of the night and the beginning of a well-earned rest. I reach the upper landing and step out into the corridor, the blue lights feeling bright and sterile after the warm glow of the thermal plant. I take a deep breath of the recycled air, which feels crisp and fresh against my skin. There is still much to do, but the hardest part of the shift is behind me, and the rhythm of the bass continues, steady and sure, as we drift through the silent, watery dark toward the bridge that connects the power core to the habitation modules. The bridge is long and narrow, stretching across the abyss like a silver thread. Underneath, the darkness is absolute, save for the occasional drifting speck of bioluminescence. I walk slowly, my boots making a soft, rhythmic thud against the reinforced titanium floor, a sound that echoes slightly in the empty space. To my left and my right, the thick glass panels offer a panoramic view of the deep, a world of shadows and faint, ghostly lights. The air here is cooler, away from the intense heat of the thermal plant, and it carries the faint metallic scent of the base's ventilation system. I stop for a moment, resting my hand against the cold glass, feeling the subtle vibration of the base's life support systems. Out there in the crushing depths, the water is a heavy, silent weight, pressing against the hull with a force that is difficult to comprehend. But here, inside this fragile bubble of light and air, everything is calm and controlled. I watch a school of hoopfish drift by, their glowing rings casting a soft blue light on the glass, before they disappear back into the gloom. They move with such grace, such effortless ease, in an environment that would be lethal to me without the protection of these walls. I continue my walk, moving toward the bioreactor room, the heart of the station's secondary power supply. The door slides open with a gentle hiss, revealing a room bathed in a soft green glow. The bioreactor itself is a large cylindrical tank, filled with a swirling neon green liquid that hums with a low organic frequency. It is a strange and beautiful machine, a fusion of technology and biology that turns organic matter into the energy that keeps us alive. I check the levels on the control panel, the glowing icons reflecting in my eyes as I ensure the conversion rate is steady. Everything is within the expected parameters, the green liquid churning slowly as it digests the plant matter I added earlier in the shift. I reach into one of the storage containers and pull out a handful of glowing creepvine seeds, their orange light a warm contrast to the green of the reactor. I drop them into the hopper, watching as they are drawn into the tank, a small offering to the machine that sustains us. It is a quiet, meditative task, the kind of mundane labor that keeps the mind grounded in the face of the vast alien ocean outside. Leaving the bioreactor room, I head toward the water filtration unit, located in a small, cramped alcove off the main corridor. The machine is loud, a rhythmic clunk hiss that fills the small space, a constant reminder of the effort required to produce clean, drinkable water in this environment. I check the collection trays, finding 2 large, heavy bottles of purified water and a small pile of salt crystals. The salt is a byproduct of the process, a fine white powder that feels like sand between my fingers. I place the water bottles into a nearby storage locker, their weight a satisfying presence in my hands. We can never have too much water, not down here, where the nearest fresh source is thousands of meters above us. I take a moment to wipe down the machine, removing the thin layer of salt and condensation that has built up on the exterior. It is a small thing, a minor detail, but in the deep, the small things matter. Maintenance is not just about fixing what is broken. It is about preventing the slow, creeping decay that the ocean constantly tries to impose upon us. My path takes me next to the moon pool, the large open-bottomed docking bay where our submersibles are housed. The water in the center of the room is a deep, dark blue, the surface shimmering with the reflected light of the overhead lamps. The seamoth sits in its docking cradle, its sleek white hull gleaming in the half-light. I walk around the perimeter of the pool, checking the tension on the docking clamps and the integrity of the power cables. The seamoth is our lifeline, our only means of exploring the world outside these walls, and it must be kept in perfect condition. I run my hand along the side of the vessel, feeling the smooth, cold surface of the hull. There are a few small scratches, likely from a close encounter with a reef or a curious predator, but nothing that compromises the integrity of the ship. I make a mental note to buff them out during my next shift, a task for a quieter night. Beside the seamoth, the prawn suit stands like a silent sentinel, its massive mechanical arms folded across its chest. It is a formidable machine, designed for the harshest environments, but even it feels small and insignificant against the backdrop of the deep. I move into the scanner room, the walls lined with monitors and holographic displays that show the surrounding terrain in exquisite detail. The central table projects a three-dimensional map of the seabed, a landscape of ridges, trenches, and hidden caves. I watch as the scanner drones move across the map, their positions marked by small pulsing dots. They are out there now in the dark, searching for resources and monitoring the local wildlife. I adjust the frequency of the sensors, fine-tuning the data feed to ensure we are getting the clearest possible picture of the world around us. There is something hypnotic about the scanner room, the way the holographic map shifts and changes as the drones move. It is a window into a world we can only see through the eyes of machines, a world that is both beautiful and terrifying. I see a large serpentine shape moving on the edge of the scan range, a reminder that we are not alone in these waters. It is far away, for now, a distant threat in the vastness of the deep. I log the contact and move on, the routine of the shift pulling me back to the tasks at hand. I enter the interior garden module, a small, lush oasis in the middle of the titanium and glass. The air here is thick and humid, smelling of damp earth and growing things. I walk between the grow beds, my boots sinking slightly into the soft, nutrient-rich soil. We grow a variety of plants here, from the sweet, juicy marble melons to the glowing lantern trees that provide both food and light. I check the moisture levels in the soil, adjusting the irrigation system to ensure each plant gets exactly what it needs. I pick a single marble melon, the skin cool and smooth in my hand. I slice it open, the sweet, refreshing scent filling the air, and take a bite. It is a taste of home, a reminder of the sun and the soil of a world that feels very far away. I spend a few minutes tending to the plants, pruning dead leaves and checking for signs of disease. It is a peaceful, grounding task, a way to connect with something living and growing in a world of cold metal and dark water. The soft bubbling of the hydroponic system is the only sound, a gentle, soothing lullaby that makes me feel for a moment like I'm back on the surface. I leave the garden and head back into the main corridor, my shift nearly at its end. I pass by the small break area where a single coffee machine sits on a counter, its red light glowing in the dark. I consider making a cup, but decide against it. I want to be able to sleep once I finally crawl into my bunk. I stop at a large window, looking out at a nearby jellish room, its purple cap glowing with a soft, ethereal light. It is a beautiful sight, a reminder of the incredible diversity of life on this planet. I check the hull plating one last time as I walk, looking for any signs of stress or fatigue. The base creaks occasionally, a deep groaning sound that echoes through the corridors. It is the sound of the ocean, a reminder of the immense pressure that surrounds us. But the walls hold, the titanium and glass standing firm against the weight of the water. I check the labels on the storage lockers, ensuring everything is organized and in its proper place. Order is essential in a place like this, where a single misplaced tool could mean the difference between life and death. I reach the final corridor, the one that leads to the habitation sector. The lights here are dimmed, a signal to the crew that it is time for rest. I walk quietly, not wanting to wake those who are already asleep. My shift is over, the routine complete, and the base is safe for another night. I take one last look back at the central hub, the blue lights reflecting in the polished floor. It is a good feeling, knowing that I have done my part to keep this fragile outpost functioning in the heart of the deep. As I approach my quarters, I feel the weight of the shift beginning to settle in my bones. The adrenaline of the work is fading, replaced by a deep, quiet tiredness. I think about the day ahead, the tasks that will need to be done, and the challenges that we will face. But for now, there is only the quiet, the soft hum of the base, and the knowledge that the night is well tended. I step into the habitation module, the air feeling warm and inviting as I prepare to leave the silent watery world behind for a few hours of well-earned rest, moving toward the heavy door of the sleeping quarters. The heavy door to the sleeping quarters does not close, not yet. A soft amber light begins to pulse on my personal digital assistant, a quiet reminder of a secondary task, one that requires the absolute stillness of the late-night cycle. It is the deep well inspection, a journey down to the auxiliary thermal station, nestled in the heat of the lower trenches. I turn away from the bunk, the familiar weight of duty pulling me back toward the moon pool. The air in this sector is cooler, smelling faintly of ozone and recycled minerals. My footsteps, heavy and rhythmic, echo against the reinforced titanium floor, a solitary beat in the heart of the base. I reach the lockers, where the heavy dive suit hangs, its fabric thick and cold to the touch. I slide into the layers, feeling the familiar constriction, the way the seals hiss as they lock into place. It is a second skin, a necessary barrier between myself and the crushing, indifferent weight of the 500 meters of water above. The prawn suit sits in its docking cradle, a mechanical titan waiting in the dim light. I climb into the cockpit, the glass canopy closing with a pressurized thud that silences the rest of the base. The displays flicker to life, casting a soft blue glow across my hands, showing the status of the hydraulic systems and the integrity of the hull. I release the docking clamps, and the suit drops into the water with a heavy, muffled splash. The transition is always sudden, the shift from the dry, hum-filled air of the base to the silent, liquid embrace of the ocean. I sink slowly, the thrusters firing in short, gentle bursts to stabilize my descent into the dark. Below me, the seafloor drops away into a yawning chasm, a place where the light of the sun has never reached. I switch on the external floodlights, two beams of brilliant white cutting through the murky water. Small silver fish scatter like sparks, their scales catching the light for a fleeting second before they vanish back into the gloom. The descent is a slow, methodical process, a journey through layers of temperature and pressure. I monitor the depth gauge, watching the numbers climb 500, 550, 600. The suit creaks, the metal groaning as it adjusts to the increasing weight, a sound that I have learned to trust over many long months. I pass the first of the thermal relay pipes, their black surfaces crusted with salt and minerals. I extend the suit's arm, the mechanical fingers brushing against a valve to check for vibrations. Everything is steady, a low rhythmic pulse that tells me the heat from the planet's core is being converted into the power we need to survive. The landscape here is alien and beautiful, a forest of glowing flora that thrives in the heat. I walk the suit along a narrow ledge, the heavy footsteps stirring up clouds of silt that dance in my lights. To my left, a thermal vent erupts, a plume of shimmering superheated water rising toward the surface like a ghost. I stop to inspect a sensor array, a small, tripod-mounted device that monitors the seismic activity of the region. The casing is covered in a thin layer of bioluminescent algae, a soft green glow that pulses in time with the ocean's breath. I wipe the lens clear, the data stream on my display showing a steady, predictable pattern of tectonic shifts. Further down, the lost river begins to reveal itself, a subterranean graveyard of ancient, massive creatures. The bones, white and weathered by the ages, loom out of the darkness like the ruins of a forgotten civilization. I move carefully here, respecting the silence of this place, the way the green brine pools sit motionless at the bottom of the canyon. The brine is a river within an ocean, a dense, acidic layer that flows with its own secret current. I hover just above the surface of the green mist, watching the way it ripples as the suit's thrusters pass over it. It is a dangerous beauty, a reminder that even in the quietest moments, this world is full of hidden teeth. I reach the auxiliary base, a small single-room outpost perched on the edge of the deep trench. It is a lonely place, used only for emergency repairs and long-term monitoring. I dock the suit and step out into the small airlock, the sound of the water being pumped out filling the tiny space with a harsh mechanical roar. Inside, the air is stale and carries the sharp tang of copper. I check the power cells, their charge levels holding steady at 84%. I swap out a depleted battery, the heavy cylinder sliding into its slot with a satisfying click. The lights in the small room brighten, a warm yellow glow that feels strangely out of place in this cold green world. I sit for a moment at the small desk, looking out through the reinforced porthole. A ghost ray glides past, its translucent body glowing with a soft, ethereal blue. It moves with such grace, such effortless ease, a contrast to the heavy, clanking machinery that I rely on to stay alive. I record a short log, my voice sounding thin and tired in the small space. I speak of the thermal levels, the integrity of the pipes, and the quiet beauty of the river. It is a record for those who will follow, a way to bridge the gap between the shifts, to ensure that the work continues without interruption. I leave the outpost, the suit's headlights catching the glint of a ruby embedded in the rock wall. I do not reach for it. tonight is for maintenance, not for profit, I turn the suit back toward the main base, the long climb upward beginning once more. The thrusters hum, a steady vibration that travels through the frame and into my boots. As I ascend, the pressure begins to lift, the groaning of the suit softening into a gentle murmur. I pass back through the layers of the ocean, the green mist of the river giving way to the dark blue of the open water. I feel a sense of accomplishment, a quiet pride in the work that goes unseen by most. The main base appears above me, a constellation of lights hanging in the void. It looks fragile from this distance, a tiny bubble of air and warmth in a vast, indifferent sea. But I know every bolt, every seam, and every circuit. I know that it will hold because I have made sure of it. I guide the suit back into the moon pool, the mechanical arms reaching out to catch and secure it. The water drains away, and the silence of the base returns, deeper and more profound than before. I step out of the suit, my legs feeling heavy and strange on the solid floor, as I begin the final walk toward my quarters, the air growing warmer with every step. The air in the living quarters is always a few degrees warmer than the rest of the base. It carries the faint, sweet scent of the lantern fruit, growing in the corner planters. My boots leave damp, fading prints on the titanium floor, a temporary record of my return from the cold. I pause by the first bulkhead, listening to the rhythmic pulse of the life support system. It is a steady, reassuring heartbeat that tells me the atmosphere is still being scrubbed, and the pressure remains stable. I reach the main corridor, where the glass panels offer a panoramic view of the deep reef. At this hour, the bioluminescence is the only thing that defines the world outside. The anchor pods glow with a soft neon blue, their long tethered vines swaying in the unseen currents. It is a landscape of ghosts, shifting and shimmering in the dark. I run a gloved hand along the cool surface of the glass, feeling the faint vibration of the ocean pressing in from the other side. My first task of the late watch is the bioreactor. It sits in a dedicated chamber, a large cylindrical tank filled with a swirling green slurry of organic matter. The hum here is deeper, more guttural than the rest of the station. I check the output monitor, the words glowing softly in the dim light. The efficiency is down by 3%, a minor dip that suggests the fuel is burning through too quickly. I open the hopper, the smell of damp earth and decay wafting out to meet me. I begin to feed in the surplus creepvine samples I gathered earlier, the long, rubbery strands disappearing into the churning liquid. It is a strange alchemical process, turning the life of the ocean into the power that keeps us breathing. I watch the levels stabilize, the digital readout climbing back to 99% efficiency before I seal the hatch with a heavy metallic clunk. I move toward the water filtration unit, situated in the multi-purpose room. The machine is loud, a series of rhythmic thumps and hisses as it pulls the salt from the seawater. I pull the latest cycle of bottled water from the dispenser, the plastic cool against my palms. There are 2 large chunks of salt sitting in the tray, crystalline and sharp. I set them aside for the kitchen, thinking of how precious such simple things become when you are 400 meters below the surface. In the corner of the room, the indoor ground is thriving. The marble melons are heavy and ripe, their pale skins translucent under the artificial grow lights. I take a moment to prune the dead leaves from a Chinese potato plant, the soil beneath my fingernails a grounding reminder of a world I have not seen in months. The plants do not care about the crushing depth or the alien predators outside. They simply grow, reaching for a sun that is filtered through layers of dark water. I walk toward the scanner room, my footsteps echoing in the empty hall. The holographic display in the center of the room is a web of orange lines, mapping the terrain for 300 meters in every direction. I see the familiar shapes of the limestone outcrops, the jagged edges of the ravine, and the tiny pulsing dots that represent the local fauna. Everything is quiet. No large signatures are prowling near the hull tonight, only the small, harmless scavengers that pick at the base of the foundations. I check the camera feeds, switching from drone to drone. The world outside is a series of grainy blue-tinted shadows. Camera 1 shows the exterior graubed, where the acid mushrooms are glowing with a fierce purple intensity. Camera 2 is pointed toward the moon pool, capturing the silhouette of the prawn suit as it sits in its cradle. It looks like a sleeping giant, waiting for the next time I need its strength to face the deep. I notice a small smudge on the lens of camera 3, likely a bit of stray kelp or a curious peeper. I make a note to clean it during the next external sweep. For now, I am content to watch the quiet world through the monitors. It is a lonely vigil, but there is a peace in it that I have come to crave. The station is a fortress of logic and engineering, standing against the beautiful, chaotic mystery of the sea. I leave the scanner room and head toward the battery charging station. There are 4 power cells lined up, their indicator lights glowing a steady, solid green. I swap them out for the depleted ones in my pack, the heavy units sliding into the wall with a magnetic snap. It is a constant cycle of exchange, a way of moving energy from the earth and the sun into the tools that keep the darkness at bay. I walk through the glass tunnel that connects the main hub to the observatory. This is my favorite part of the base. The walls, the floor, and the ceiling are all reinforced glass, making it feel as though I am walking through the water itself. A school of spadefish darts past, their silver bodies catching the light from the corridor. They move as a single organism, a flash of movement that is gone as quickly as it appeared. I sit in the lone chair in the observatory, the only light coming from the bioluminescent flora outside. I can see the faint, distant glow of a lava geyser, a tiny pinprick of orange in the vast, blue-black void. It is a reminder of the heat that bubbles beneath the crust, the primal forces that shaped this world long before we arrived. I feel very small in this moment, a speck of consciousness in a cathedral of water. I check my personal digital assistant, the screen brightness turned low to save my eyes. The log entries from the previous shift are brief and clinical. They speak of hull reinforcements and titanium yields. There is no mention of the way the light catches the bubbles, or the haunting song of the reefbacks as they pass overhead. I suppose that is my job, to notice the things that the machines cannot. I stand up and stretch, my joints popping in the quiet room. The shift is moving into its final hours, and the weight of the day is beginning to settle in my shoulders. I head toward the lower deck to check the thermal plant connectors. These cables carry the power from the heat vents up to the base, and they are prone to fraying in the high-pressure environment of the trench. I find the junction box near the floor, the heavy plating held in place by 4 large bolts. I use the repair tool to tighten them, the device humming as it fuses the metal. A small spark jumps from the wiring, a brief, brilliant flash that leaves a dancing spot in my vision. I wait for it to fade, listening to the sizzle of the cooling metal. Everything is secure. I move to the storage lockers, organizing the materials I gathered during the dive. The copper ore is heavy and dull, while the quartz crystals catch the light like shards of fallen stars. I arrange them by density and type, a mindless task that allows my thoughts to drift. I think about the Aurora, the great ship that brought us here. Now nothing more than a rusting skeleton on the horizon. I wonder if anyone back at Altera is looking at the stars and thinking of us. Or if we are just another line on a ledger, a cost-benefit analysis that has already been calculated. It does not matter, I suppose. The work remains. The base needs to be maintained, the air needs to be filtered, and the lights need to stay on. That is the only truth that matters down here. I walk back to the command console, the center of the station's nervous system. I run a final diagnostic on the hull integrity. All sections are at 100%. The bulkheads are sealed, the hatches are locked, and the internal pressure is holding steady at 1 atmosphere. I feel a sense of relief, a quiet satisfaction in a job well done. I look out the main viewport one last time. The ocean seems to be settling, the shadows lengthening as the distant sun begins its slow descent on the surface far above. The bioluminescence is fading, the creatures of the night retreating into their burrows and caves. It is time for the world to rest, and for me to do the same. I make my way toward the sleeping quarters, the lights in the corridors dimming automatically as I pass. The base is entering its own version of sleep, the systems powering down to their minimum levels. I reach my door and pause, looking back at the long, glowing corridor that has been my home for so many months. The final checks are complete, and the station is ready for whatever the new day brings. The heavy, reinforced door slides shut with a soft, pneumatic hiss, sealing me inside this tiny private sanctuary. It is a small space, barely more than a few square meters, but after the vast, crushing weight of the ocean, it feels like a fortress. The air in here is slightly warmer, smelling of clean linen and the faint, sweet scent of the small fern palm sitting in the corner. I stand still for a moment, letting the silence of the room wrap around me like a heavy blanket. I sit on the edge of the bunk, the mattress sighing beneath me as I finally release the tension I have been holding in my spine. My hands are steady now, though the phantom vibration of the repair tool still lingers in my palms, a memory of the metal and the cold. I look down at my boots, scuffed and worn from the many miles walked across the steel grates of the station. They have carried me through the long hours, and now they are the first things to be set aside. I reach for the latch on my diving suit, the reinforced fabric creaking as I peel it away from my shoulders. It feels like shedding a second skin, one that is cold, salt-crusted, and heavy with the burden of the deep. The air of the room feels strangely light and soft against my skin, a gentle touch after the pressurized embrace of the neoprene. I fold the suit carefully, hanging it on the rack where it will dry before the next shift begins. I set my helmet on the small desk, its visor scarred by the grit of the seafloor and the tiny abrasive teeth of the sand sharks. It has seen more of this world than I ever intended to see, a silent witness to the depths and the darkness. I run a finger over a deep scratch near the temple, remembering the moment it happened, and then I let the memory go. The helmet is dark now, its internal displays extinguished, resting until the light returns. I pour a glass of filtered water from the small dispenser near the bed, the liquid clear and tasting faintly of minerals and ozone. It is cold, a sharp contrast to the humid warmth of the base, and I drink it slowly, feeling every swallow as it cools my throat. I watch the way the light from the desk lamp refracts through the glass, casting dancing, watery patterns across the floor. It is a simple pleasure, but down here, the simple things are the ones that keep you whole. Outside the small reinforced porthole, the world of the crater is still alive, though it has moved into a different, more secretive rhythm. The larger predators have long since retreated to the deeper trenches, leaving the night to the small, glowing things that drift like embers in the current. I see a school of holefish darting past, their circular bodies leaving faint trails of light in the water as they hunt for plankton. They move with a frantic, beautiful energy, entirely unaware of the metal shell that separates my world from theirs. Further out, in the deep blue haze of the mid-water, a single jelly ray drifts with effortless grace. Its long, flowing tentacles are tipped with a soft, pink bioluminescence that pulses in time with its movements. It is a ghost in the water, a creature of pure light and motion that seems to belong to another dimension entirely. I watch it until it disappears into the shadows, leaving behind only a fading glow in my vision. The bass groans softly, a deep, metallic sound that echoes through the floorboards and into the marrow of my bones. It is the sound of the hull adjusting to the temperature changes of the night, a reminder that even these walls are under constant pressure from the millions of tons of water above. It is not a frightening sound, but a familiar one, the sound of the station settling into its own version of rest. I have learned to trust these groans, for they tell me the base is flexible and strong. I look at the small shelf where I keep my few treasures, a piece of polished sea glass, a small carved figure made from a stalker tooth, and a photograph that is beginning to fade at the edges. They are anchors, keeping me tied to a world that feels more like a dream every passing day. I touch the sea glass, its surface smooth and cool, and I think of the beaches of a home that is light years away. For a moment, I can almost smell the salt air and the dry grass of the dunes. The artificial intelligence of the base speaks in a whisper, its voice low and melodic, as it announces the transition to low-power mode. The bright whites of the laboratory lights are replaced by the soft amber glow of the night cycle, casting long dancing shadows across the walls. The station is breathing with me now, its systems slowing, its energy diverted to the most essential tasks. It is a time for stillness, for the quiet reflection that only the deep can provide. I lie back on the pillow, the fabric cool and inviting against the back of my neck. I stare up at the ceiling, at the patterns of light reflected from the water outside the glass. They dance in a slow, hypnotic loop, a kaleidoscope of blues and greens that pulls at my eyelids and softens my thoughts. The world above is a storm of wind and waves, but down here there is only the rhythmic pulse of the ocean. I think of the reefbacks, their low, resonant calls still vibrating in the distance like the sound of a great underwater pipe organ. They are the true masters of this world, ancient, indifferent, and incredibly slow. They carry entire ecosystems on their backs, wandering the currents without a care for the tiny humans who build their metal boxes on the seafloor. I find comfort in their presence, a reminder that life persists in the most unlikely of places. The hum of the life support system is a steady, reassuring pulse, the heartbeat of the station that keeps the silence from becoming too heavy. It is the sound of survival, the sound of 1,000 tiny machines working in harmony to keep the darkness at bay. I listen to the whir of the fans and the faint click of the carbon dioxide scrubbers, a mechanical lullaby that has become the soundtrack to my life. As long as that sound continues, I am safe. My breathing begins to slow, matching the rhythm of the pumps and the swaying of the kelp outside. Each inhale is deep and clean, filled with the scent of recycled air and the faint metallic tang of the oxygen generators. I feel the weight of my limbs, the way they seem to sink into the mattress as if the gravity of the planet has finally claimed me. It is a good weight, a feeling of being grounded and secure in my small corner of the universe. The darkness outside the window is absolute now, a thick velvet curtain that has swallowed the reef and the wreckage of the aurora. Only the faint bioluminescent pulse of a distant jelly shroom remains, a tiny spark in the infinite black that marks the entrance to the caves. I watch that spark until it becomes a blur, my eyes losing their focus as the boundary between the room and the ocean begins to dissolve. The deep is not a place of fear, but a place of profound eternal peace. I feel the last of the day's worries finally leaving me. The concerns about the hull integrity, the thinning power reserves, and the salt-damaged wiring. They are problems for the morning, for the version of me that will wake with the artificial sunrise. For now there is only the stillness of the room and the heavy, comfortable silence of the deep. The work is done, the station is secure, and the ocean is at rest. I am safe here in the heart of the world, protected by the ingenuity of those who came before and the steady work of my own hands. The base is quiet, the night is long, and the sea is a vast, cradle-like embrace. I close my eyes, and the blue glow of the water fades into the soft, warm darkness of sleep. The shift has ended, and the dreams are waiting to take me back to the surface. The world of 4546b continues its slow, ancient rotation, indifferent to the small life within its depths. I drift into the current of sleep, where the water is warm and the stars are within reach, floating in a sea of stars that mirrors the one outside my window. The pressure of the deep is gone, replaced by the weightless freedom of the subconscious. I am no longer a worker, but a wanderer in a world without borders. Good night, deep sea, with your hidden wonders and your silent, crushing beauty. Good night, silent base, my faithful companion in the dark. I will see you when the light returns to the shallows and the new day calls me back to the metal and the glass. Until then, there is only the peace of the long night and the steady, rhythmic breathing of the station. I surrender to the quiet, letting the last of the world fade away into a single, shimmering point of light. The journey through the depths has reached its end, and the silence is the only answer that remains. I am home, in the only way that matters now, resting in the heart of the great blue unknown as the cycle begins once more. Thank you for spending this evening with me. Until next time, on Canon and Calm, sleep well.